Good morning, good evening to you guys over the other side. How's everybody? Anyone there today? Should I hang around and wait for you guys? Anyone tuning in? Have I left it too late? Running a bit late today. All right, how's everybody doing in the great land of isolation today? You guys must be feeling a little robbed as spring gets closer. I know you've worked hard getting yourself through the bleak winter with all the promise of those island vacations, cruises, a beach walk. Hey Kimberly, how are you? How'd you go in those storms yesterday? I know you guys have, gotten yourself through that whole winter. Storms now, summer's coming, you're here. Don't you feel a little robbed? Like, you just got yourself through winter and now spring's on its way and you're in lockdown? Hardly seems fair. All that's been taken. I know a lot of you had bookings for trips, cruises, and now, they've either been pushed back till later in the year or cancelled or on hold. Who knows when this is going to end? The whole situation's kind of stressful, isn't it? It's, are you spending your time worried about your old elderly family members, praying they don't get it? Do you have an elderly parent who's still going to the supermarket every day? I was chatting with my friend Lauren in Florida today and she said her 90-year-old dad is still going to the grocery store every day. He won't give up that habit, It's so stressful. And also, how long is it going to go on for? How long till you can see your children who live in another city or your grandkids? Or do you know anyone? I've seen some people on Facebook who have a new grandchild and they can't see them, or they've seen them through a glass door. I mean, it's so hard. Or are you like me and have younger children at home that you are like, oh my goodness, when can I send these kids back to school? When can I get my life back? When can I go to the gym? When I can go to, have a coffee with my girlfriends? Are you feeling claustrophobic at home? It's kind of funny that, I find it funny. One day I wake up and I'm like, okay, I've got this. And I get up and I get it all together and I can spend the day cleaning or decluttering, clean out a cupboard or, paint the kitchen. That's on my list, haven't done that yet, but I see a lot of people are doing that. So one day you'll wake up and you're like, yeah, I've got this. And the next day you're like, oh, why even get out of bed? Oh, well, I've got a story today for you from the island of Martinique. It's a French island, but I'm also thinking we should have another little shopping event, maybe on the weekend. What do you guys think? Perhaps I can share my tips on how to stay comfortable and how to still look cute in lockdown. I think that has definitely helped me enormously. The fact that you guys, I feel like I've got to be accountable to turn up and do my lives. This morning my sister came around to get some rosemary out of my garden. I've got this huge rosemary bush, so she wanted some. And she's like, wow, you look nice. Oh, well, why are you wearing beads? She said, you're only staying home. I'm like, well, I've got to do my life, so I've got to look nice. So, it kind of helps me. You guys are helping me. Hey, Bernie, thanks for checking in. Okay, so let me take you now to St.Pierre. Hey, Dana. St.Pierre is a tiny little village on the north coast of the island of Martinique. Now, Martinique is one of the French islands, and we didn't spend a lot of time in the French islands, usually because of visas and that sort of thing. But back in the late 1800s, this was a bustling port city. And at that time, it was known as the Paris of the Caribbean. So ships hauled away precious loads of sugar and rum that were grown anywhere else on the island. And there was a beautiful theatre, and it had become the official cultural capital of the French colony. Like, it was a beautiful little city. The only problem was that it lay just 7 kilometres away from a volcano called Mount Pelée. Now, the mountain was quiet, So there'd been a few rumblings and an ash shower in 1851, but by the turn of the century, it had been quiet for 50 years, so nobody was worried about it. Oh, I hear my crew have just gotten home from the beach. I can hear my little boy. Everywhere he goes, he's loud. So on May 2nd, 1902, there was another small eruption, and the residents noticed that the summit of the mountain seemed to be on fire. It was kind of spewing golden rocks and lightening up the night sky. This happened at midnight. So the next day, residents found dead birds in the area, and a boat captain that had just come in mentioned that he'd seen an area where there was a whole bunch of dead fish just floating on the surface. And in the days that followed, the mountain continued to grumble. And I found this lovely quote of some lady, I think she wrote to her sister. This morning, the whole population of the city is on alert, and every eye is directed towards Mount Pelee, an extinct volcano, wrote Clara Prentice, the wife of the American consul in St.Pierre, in a letter to her sister. Everybody is afraid that the volcano has taken into its head to burst forth and destroy the whole island. What happened next is that there was heaps of these small little eruptions, kind of little warnings. So these rumblings were causing concern with the residents over those days, but it was printed in the newspaper that everything's fine. The local expert, who was actually the local science teacher, he reassured the public that the mountain was safe. And the governor of the island, who sometimes lived down in the southern part in Fort-de-France, he came up to St.Pierre to stay in his St.Pierre house just to reassure the town that everything was fine. However, so on May 8th, the volcano exploded, and in a few minutes, the whole city of St.Pierre was buried in a deadly mix of hot gas and rocks. One farmer who was up in the distant hills was a witness to the disaster, and he wrote, "A flash more dazzling than lightning happened. At the same time, a cloud that had formed on the summit of the mountain literally fell on the town of St.Pierre with such rapidity that it was impossible for anyone to escape. Now 30,000 people died in an instant. For days afterwards, the town burned and smouldered. The ships in the port burned and sank at anchor. Like there was no time to lift that anchor and get out of there. It was just an instant. The volcano erupted again a few days later, again burying the town and hampering rescue efforts. When finally the rescuers got into that town, they only found one survivor, and that was a prisoner in his jail cell. Hey Tammy, how are you? So this just was an instant, like the Paris of the Caribbean, a vibrant cultural city with a theatre and all this stuff going on, just wiped out in a minute. You know, this just dumped everything on it. Now to go back there to this little town is actually gorgeous. So it's for us, you know, for us sailing in, there was, I guess because of the volcano, the land had changed. So there's the beach, but it wasn't it was kind of a bit of a black sand beach, I think. And then there was a shallow shelf that you could anchor on. Now, if you imagine the sea floor, like it was a little bit down and you could anchor there, but then it fell away suddenly. So you had to get your anchor on the shelf. Otherwise, the water would be too deep to anchor. So too far out, you can't anchor. Whereas in a normal situation, like in Bequia, for instance, the sand kind of drifts, gets shallow, it gets deeper, you know, as you go further away from the shore. So not like a steep drop off like that. And also, so you've got a limited space and lots of boats, and us being us, we don't want to anchor next to, you know, we don't like being anchored in on top of each other. So it was always a bit of a problem to anchor there for us. And I do remember one time we had to try like 3 times until we got the anchor to hold good and in a spot that we were happy with, where we felt safe. yeah, so that was a bit troubling. But once we were set and you could go ashore, the town is adorable. It's like being in France, I guess, in some little French village. And you go ashore, there's a lovely dock, so you can leave the dinghy on the dock and you can walk up into this town, and there's gorgeous little French shops and bakeries, and you buy lovely fresh French bread and cheeses and wines. There's a gorgeous old church with 2 steeples, I think, and church bells that would play at sunset. Just beautiful. But the interesting thing is that in amongst these French buildings, so there'll be like 3 French buildings that have shop fronts, and then there'll be a ruin of like what was there. It was really weird like that, like just, houses and then a ruin, and then some more buildings and then another ruin. And there was the theatre was kind of like one of those amphitheatres, and that was still there, the entrance to it we walked up into, and it was very glamorous looking. But yeah, I think you can also go to the prison cell where the one survivor was, but I don't remember finding that. But yeah, just a lovely, quaint little French village, just gorgeous. Yeah, so I actually found a video recently that I had shot, and I'd lost it because I don't know, when we were sailing, we didn't have great cameras, and you know how nowadays you have your phone and you're just always taking photos. Well, then we just didn't take many photos, or then especially not video. But I found this one little video that of my husband and Maya. She was only, I don't know, 2 or 3, and we were on the dock, and it was sunset, and the church bells were ringing, and we were sitting there eating pate. Hey, Jennifer. Yeah, we were eating pate and cheeses on the dock, watching the sunset, listening to the church bells, and Maya chatting, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." And then it looks across the little town, and you can see our boat anchor down there. It's actually, I'll try and find the link, and I think I have uploaded it to Facebook before, so I'll try and get that for you. And yeah, and share that, because it's absolutely gorgeous little town. If you ever get down there, that is a must do. Absolutely love that little place. So, all right, well, let me know if you're keen on a shopping event, and I'll think of something. Maybe we can do some talking about being comfortable and still cute on lockdown. It is possible, and I tell you what, it helps your mental health if you have that luxury. All right, guys, have a nice night. Chat again tomorrow. I'll think of another island to tell you about. Okay, bye.